Hello, we are Group 6 and we have conducted a Microsoft case analysis. Here are some topics we'll be talking about. We're going to be talking about Microsoft Corporation, the direct and indirect competitors, the SWOT analysis, major customers, problems, and solutions. Here are some general information about Microsoft and some recent facts. They're one of the most well-known corporations in the world. They develop software products and provide various services. They have created the Windows operating system, which is one of the most well-known operating systems in the world. Microsoft Office, OneDrive, and many others. They have over 120,000 worldwide employees as of 2016, and they have also generated $16.79 billion net income in 2016. Here are some direct competitors to Microsoft. Here they have Apple, Google, Android, IBM, and SAP. Apple is probably the top competitor to Microsoft. Some people prefer to use Apple over Microsoft due to how secure Apple's operating system is. We'll get into more detailing about that later on. Google, they have a better search engine than Microsoft, so that is a competitor as well. Android and Microsoft are competitors because they sell phones and tablets. And IBM, they just create computers kind of like Microsoft, and SAP.
SAP just usually like they have their own software, whereas like people usually resort to SAP's enterprise software as opposed to any of Microsoft's other software that they have. So that's why SAP is a competitor of Microsoft.
Well, here are some indirect competitors: Walmart, Best Buy, Sony, and Nintendo. These competitors are they sell products that are not the same, but they could satisfy the consumer's need. So this is what the four kind of do, and that's why they're the indirect competitors.
Okay, so this isn't really a full, complete SWOT analysis because I'm sure anybody could find several other um, topics under each category of the SWOT analysis, but this is just kind of an overall SWOT analysis. So, really what I want to highlight is the weaknesses because of later on in the presentation we are going to talk about the problems that Microsoft has, which center around the weaknesses of their corporation. So first of all, the first weakness would be they have their poor acquisitions and investments. And I know this kind of sounds weird because Microsoft actually made a really good acquisition as far as Skype goes. They acquired Skype, and Skype has generated so much income for Microsoft and continues to do so. I think it's like 300. They have like 300 million users worldwide, and it's just continuing to grow. So that was a really good acquisition. But there has been several other investments that Microsoft has poorly made. I think I remember a few of them. It was like Link Exchange, and I think one of them was Danger. And I know these don't sound very well known. Well, it's because that they, so to speak, went to the grinder. That's why it didn't really work out for Microsoft. They didn't bring any new skills or income to the corporation. They pretty much just didn't contribute to Microsoft's evolvement, I guess is what you could say. And there's been several others that they have invested in or tried to acquire, and it just didn't. It just fell through the floor. Anyway, the next one is the dependence on hardware manufacturers. Believe it or not, Microsoft does not manufacture their own hardware. They're a software corporation. All they do is make the software. So they have to depend on computer hardware manufacturers to make the equipment, the computers, so to speak, that will run the Windows operating system and Microsoft Office, just pretty much any software that Microsoft makes. The next one is their criticism over their security. the Windows operating system has been rated one of the worst as far as security goes. It is very flawed. It's not very protected. And I really don't want to get into this too much because this will be the problem that we highlight later on in the presentation. So we'll talk more about it later on. They're mature PC markets. Okay, so we'll take the mobile market for example. Everybody knows that the mobile market is growing. It has grown so much over the years, and it's going to continue to grow as the years go on. Well, Microsoft kind of dropped the ball on entering the market area. I mean, the mobile market area. And I speak this from personal experience. I have owned a Windows phone. I have owned an Android, and I have owned an Apple iPhone. And I will say that from personal experience, the Windows phone was by far the worst. Pretty much anything you can think of that you like, that the user likes to see in a mobile smartphone, the Windows phone just did not provide. There was just so many flaws in how it performed overall. The App Store was very terrible, and it just wasn't satisfying. So they kind of dropped the ball on the mobile market area. I guess they could kind of rebound, but it's going to take it's going to take a miracle for them to get into the mobile market as far as Android and Apple go, because Android and Apple have pretty much took off with it. Another weakness is that Microsoft is very slow to innovate. Okay, so most recent operating system was Windows 10, and this is actually a good example of it. Microsoft has already announced that they're not going to make any more operating systems. Windows 10 is actually the last operating system that Microsoft is going to make. They're just going to keep updating it and, just keep it up to date. Now, as for whether that stays true years to come, I guess we'll really find out if it's set in stone, but the last update for Microsoft was that they have confirmed that Windows 10 is indeed the last operating system. So that right there tells you that they're not really innovating their operating system. They're just sticking with what's out there and just sending out updates to clean up all the bugs and stuff. So here we have some of their major customers. The first one would be Insight Enterprises. Now, Insight Enterprises, they help Microsoft with their IT solutions. They kind of provide Microsoft some insight on how to develop well-known cloud services, such as Office 365 and Azure. Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Those two cloud services have brought many customers to Microsoft, and their partnership with Insight has helped with it. And we all know how much cloud services are actually becoming more and more in use. So Microsoft could see a pretty good partnership coming up with Insight Enterprise. The next one would be Ingram Micro. Ingram Micro pretty much just helps Microsoft with their marketing and distribution of their electronics, just pretty much your basic necessities, your basic technology necessities. And HP, we all know what HP does. They are a real big laptop and desktop manufacturer, and they help Microsoft promote their Windows 10 operating system by deciding to incorporate that on their laptops and desktop. Then we have CDW Corp, and that is what has helped Microsoft with their tablets. I'm sure we've all seen Microsoft's tablets. Tablets are becoming more and more in use, as I stated before, the mobile market. And then there's Yahoo, and Yahoo pretty much, I'm pretty sure we've all heard of the Bing search engine. Well, Yahoo and Microsoft share the income that is generated from Bing advertisements. Okay, and now we have the problem, which is the security of the operating system. The operating system is very vulnerable, and the reason they give the users too much freedom. Well, it's not really too much freedom, because some users really like that, to have a lot more freedom to pretty much customize the operating system how they want. But because of this freedom is much more vulnerable than, say, the Mac OS is. Uh, it is more open to the viruses, malware, ransomware, and spyware. Pretty much all that bad stuff that could happen to your operating system. You get infected through websites, emails, all that stuff, and the system can obviously crash from the viruses. So here we have some solutions to keeping your computer as secure as possible, or your Windows operating system as secure as possible. Always make sure it's completely up to date. This should be a no-brainer, actually. Everyone who has some knowledge of their Windows operating system should know to keep it up to date. And most people usually have it set to automatically update, which is what you want. And then you could also, if you first install the Windows operating system on your computer, right after it gets through installing and you do all the security updates, you can create a backup or a restore point of the computer right then before you do anything else. And then the reason you do this is because when you start installing drivers to run, say, your audio, your video, your graphics, pretty much anything, your USBs, these drivers and softwares could actually mess up the computer. And so the reason you create that backup is so in case that happens, you can just revert straight back to what it was before you were installing drivers and software and all that stuff. Pretty simple. The next one would be to install a third-party virus protection program. Nowadays, Windows operating system comes with Windows Defender, and Windows Defender is actually one of the lowest virus protection programs you can get as far as security rating goes. So what you can do is install another virus protection software, such as Malwarebytes. That's a really good one. There's Bitdefender. There's several you can find out there, and you can always check online. Like I think a PC Pro magazine or something like that always has a list of the most recent virus protection software that is worth getting. And here's actually the final solution to this security problem. What Microsoft could do is make their users have a choice to do a tutorial for their for the virus protection, sort of. It'll just inform users on how they can stay protected, because like, this is really for like the computer illiterate, so to speak, people, which there's a lot of people out there, and that's okay, but Microsoft needs to address this, and the best way to do that would be to incorporate a tutorial that they can choose to view, like if it's a video or even if it's a readable tutorial, view it, and just kind of go through it, show them the basics for keeping your Windows system up to date. Even admitting, even Microsoft should even think about admitting that their Windows Defender is not the best. That's just like admitting your flaws. I think that they should admit to that anyway. The tutorial can, kind of inform them what is viable for their safety. But even after all this, ultimately the biggest threat to a computer is the users themselves. So that's why it's best to inform them as much as possible to keeping their operating system safe. And maybe that will kind of help Microsoft stay in the game as far as operating systems go, because right now the Apple operating system, the Mac OS, what was the new one? The El Capitan or whatever it is. That one, Apple seems like they're starting to run away with the operating system game, and mainly it's because they're so secure. And it's the way they do, it isn't like the way they do their files or something. It's like so encrypted in a certain way that it makes it a lot harder for viruses and stuff to get a hold to the files and stuff that's on your computer. But all in all, the user themselves is actually the largest threat. So Microsoft can easily address this problem by just offering a quick tutorial on how to protect their PC. And I think that will conclude our presentation, and we hope you enjoyed.
Thank you.